Emily, it's been really fun to work with Emily through the year and watch her thesis sort of evolve, right? It started in one direction, always in the same sort of topical area, but it's kind of evolved as she went through the semester, and I think in a good way, and she's done a really good job putting it together. Emily wants to say this: I would like to thank God, Mr. and Miss Strickland, as my guide for this thesis, my friends and family for coming, and myself for completing this thing. So, very good. What I'll do is I'll set up the timer and I'll let you know when you can start, okay? All right, you can start whenever you're ready.
This is the story of Jeremy. Jeremy woke up behind bars with an ear-splitting headache, and every part of his body hurts. He needs help. It's been months since the last time Jeremy injected himself with this mysterious liquid. His friends and family are miles away from him, and he doesn't even know whether they still think, let alone care for him. It made him wonder, is there anyone in this world who cares for me? If God cares, why would He allow all these things to happen to me? Does God even exist? He remembered how it all began. The first time, he tried to smoke marijuana for fun. It felt good. It felt like a slice of heaven, and made him do more and more. He didn't realize that day, his life is starting to shatter to pieces. He remembered how it all began. One day, Jeremy got arrested for drug possession and usage. He was tried, found guilty, and sentenced 4 years. 4 years in prison without anything to help him cope with his pain and addiction. It made him wonder, is there anything in this world that can help him overcome this addiction? And would things be different if prisons offered faith-based rehabilitation instead? I will refer to faith-based rehabilitation as FBR. The origin of FBR started in the following years after World War II, when the number of addicts significantly escalated from 2,700 to 4,500 within a span of 9 years in the United States of America. By the 1950s, Christian churches started to be involved and establish outreach programs, community-based faith treatments, and sober living environments to help cope with this addiction problem. By the late 20th century, faith-based organizations have grown in quantity through ATR, Access to Rehabilitation, and NARA, Narcotics Addict Rehabilitation Act of 1966. Another program, Interchange Freedom Initiative, or IFI, was under prison fellowship and became one of the first and most successful faith-based organizations that worked in prison built in the 1970s. It is based on the teachings of Jesus Christ and how Jesus Christ is open to everyone, no matter their past, sinners or tax collectors. Faith-based rehabilitations are therapeutic models of treatment that involve emotional, physical, and spiritual aspects of recovery. By means of spirituality, offenders will be taught about the spiritual aspect of how addiction is sin and learn religious methods that leads towards healing. The drug epidemic is an urgent matter our country needs to deal with. The drug misuse in Indonesia is 3.3 million in 2023. High drug usage resulted as an economic burden, which means increased crime, healthcare, and productivity cost, which is a threat to Indonesia's future development. Therefore, all criminals convicted for possession or usage of drugs in Indonesia should be given faith-based rehabilitation while incarcerated for these 3 reasons. It offers punitive and redemptive approach. It lowers the recidivism rates. And it treats offenders' spiritual healing by treating their mental health. Both FBR complements imprisonment, where drug offenders will receive both punitive and redemptive approach. Punitive discipline is intended for offenders to understand the consequences of their negative behavior, On the other hand, redemptive discipline is a gospel-centered approach to foster understanding of sin and leads toward healing, freedom, forgiveness, and hope. Both disciplines are needed, as punitive consequences do not work alone to deter drug addiction. Firstly, imprisonment only addresses addiction externally, not internally, treating external behaviors but not the root cause, such as trauma or mental health disorders. Just like weeds, merely cutting from the stem will still allow their growth. However, when the plants are treated and cut from the roots, it stops the recurrence of growth as it is completely destroyed. Similarly, addiction must be treated from the root cause. Imprisonment only deters drug consumption activity for a while and does not address its internal cause. Instead of lowering addiction rates, imprisonment actually does the opposite. For example, in opioid addiction, a fatal drug relapse can occur due to loss of treatment while incarcerated. Imprisonment fails because addiction recovery is an inside job that not only that changes personal thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and behaviors, addressing past traumas and mental disorders. These changes are done by connecting offenders to a divine power that heals them internally. Punitive discipline deters offenders through fear of punishment. However, fear does not work to deter people. For example, when the child accidentally breaks their parents' favorite glass, their natural reaction will be hiding it from their parents, as they fear the punishment that will be given to them. Likewise, fear only keeps an addict drug use more hidden from others and does not drive them out of their addictive behaviors. Punitive discipline deters offenders through fear of punishment. People don't react well to negative emotions such as guilt, coercion, fear, or shame. In comparison, love is necessary and crucial to provide support and change, seen in scriptural examples when Jesus lovingly accepted the woman engaged in prostitution at the well. His love led her to a change of heart and lifestyle. FBR provides offenders with unconditional love by making them feel accepted along with a sense of belonging. Love is a powerful tool, one that guides and transforms people from enslavement into freedom. While humans need reasons to change, punitive punishment, like incarceration, only stops offenders from consuming drugs in the moment, but not providing any significant reasons for why they should stop in the long term. Humans seek meaning and purpose, and both triggers the motivation they feel to change. People are able to accept something if they understand a good reason behind it, and it makes sense. For example, you are stuck in the traffic jam. The first emotion you are likely to feel is frustration or irritation, as you want to go home as quickly as possible, but you are annoyed at the delay. But suddenly, you saw a corpse lying on the ground, next to an overturned motorcycle and a crashed vehicle. Naturally, your frustration and irritation will be replaced by empathy and understanding as you understand the reason behind the horrible traffic. Incarceration alone does not provide any reasons for people to change, while redemptive discipline offers self-awareness that leads towards healing from internal pain. This provides purpose and motivation for offenders to abandon their addiction, where there is something far in life greater than just relying on drugs. The research shows that individuals with a strong sense of meaning and purpose are 65% less likely to turn into drugs when meeting the stresses of life. Faith-based rehabilitation produces the lowest recidivism rates among institutions that deal with the addiction of drugs. Recidivism rate is the tendency to relapse back into criminal behavior, and over 400 studies have been conducted on the role of faith in addiction recovery and has proved a success rate of 40 to 60%. In contrast, a secular drug program only reduces recidivism by under 30%. For example, Prisoners or offenders who attended Prisoner Entrepreneurship Fellowship only has a recidivism rate of only 7%. Low recidivism rates prove that faith-based rehabilitation or FBR is the most effective in treating substance abuse. FBR lowers recidivism rates by offering a safe place for offenders to begin their recovery. Narcotics Anonymous, or NA, offers people that cares and listens to them while building a culture of recovery. Just like AA, or Alcoholic Anonymous for short, each meeting consists of a speaker sharing inspiring stories of hope and having heart-to-heart conversations. NA is just like a care group in a Christian church, where it will be a non-judgmental and caring environment where individuals can inspire each other, have a safe place, and receiving support to heal. NA have overall decreased stress and depression and increased their abstinence motivation. NA members successfully helped 21 experimental members to remain drug-free and had made a fourfold reduction in drug relapse in Australia. FBR reduces recidivism by providing hope and new beginnings for others. Sana at Stowe, an FBR center, recorded that 80% of people after rehab eventually meets their achievement in life, from going back to education to starting new businesses and even helping others that are in recovery. 2 Corinthians 5 verse 17 says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the old creation has gone. The new is here." The Bible acted as the motivation and inspiration for their transformation. The fact that they find identity of who they are now means that they have moved on from being a past addict and have lived a new life. Faith-based rehabilitation successfully incorporates cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT for short, to maintain drug abstinence. CBT is a therapy that teaches offenders to take control of their negative thoughts and change them into positive ones, where they can improve their feelings and their mental disorders. Although CBT is a secular-based treatment, it complements the teaching of faith. Philippians 4 verse 8 says, "Brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." The American Journal of Psychiatry states that 2 out of 3 people with substance use disorder that use CBT, along with faith-based rehab, achieved healing, compared to the 1/3 that achieved abstinence using CBT alone. Aside from helping offenders let go of their addiction, faith-based rehabilitation seeks to help offenders' spiritual healing by treating their mental health. FBR heals offenders' mental disorders, especially depression and anxiety. FBR reduces disorder by emotional transformation and self-control, along with the values of compassion, gratitude to God, and human accountability. FBR helps by creating specific program treatments. For example, Apex Recovery program made a program that combines therapeutic interventions with spiritual guidance for offenders that are experiencing depression. Moreover, these offenders were also having a decrease in anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, PTSD, borderline personality disorder or BPD, and other self-harming behaviors. Through the treatments given by FBR programs, offenders are able to slowly recover from these mental illnesses and therefore recovering from addiction itself. FBR provides holistic healing to the individual. Holistic healing, healing the body, healing the mind, and healing the soul of the individual. In order to achieve healing on a deeper level, FBR incorporates spiritual practices such as Bible teaching, praying, and study of scripture, and also mentoring. People who underwent holistic treatment are 82% claiming to have a spiritual awakening and remained drug-free even after a year. they experience a special revelation, where in normal institution they do not. Faith-based rehabilitation or FBR heals emotional wounds and past traumas, which can lead to spiritual renewal. Emotional wounds and past traumas are the primary cause of drug addiction. Therefore, by treating these wounds and traumas, not only that can they let go of drugs, but they can also start a spiritual journey. A faith-based institution conducted an experimental program called the CTHP or Correctional Trauma Healing Program with 349 inmates in Virginia. CTHP has reduced the consequences of trauma, such as suicidal ideation and interpersonal aggression. These inmates will also have to found a decrease in vengefulness and increase in religiosity. God wants to heal us from these wounds. Just like the verse, Psalms 147 verse 3 that says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. By involving God in healing these emotional wounds, offenders are actually beginning a spiritual journey. Certain individuals may contend that spiritual and clinical treatment cannot coexist because they also argue that secular-based is the best option. Addiction is a worldly desire and a chronic disease. Just like asthma, which is a chronic disease, cannot be solved with spiritual. It needs spiritual treatment instead of medical intervention. Of course, someone who is having an asthmatic attack will not get better if she or he would just pray without using an inhaler immediately. Similarly, some may say that that is also the case for drug addiction. Although addiction may not be seen to be connected to spirituality, it is in fact a spiritual disease that needs spiritual interventions. As unimportant as religion may seem, there is actually a strong connection between lack of religiosity and substance abuse. It is found that adults who disregard religion as important are 4 times more likely to turn into illegal drugs, such as heroin and marijuana, than adults who consider religion as important. Wong McDonald conducted a research to find out if spiritual interventions, such as discussing spiritual concepts, worship, and encouraging forgiveness, can help participants regain hope and thus leads to healing. The experimental group that integrated spirituality achieved 100% healing, compared to the 50% that does not involve any kind of spirituality. Letting a divine power intervene heals the emotions and the disorders so that addicts will be able to find their identity and purpose. Ultimately, where secular programs seem to fail, spirituality in addiction is the solution. Another opposing view may be that criminals that violate the law should be given punishment and not free therapy. However, we should consider that drug addiction cannot be solved with punishment alone. Punishment alone are only 19 to 24% effective. Moreover, most addicts are victims of drug traffickers, where their pleasure circuits are manipulated so that when she or he does not consume drugs for a while, their emotional sensing circuits turn into overdrive, making them overly anxious and stressed. The only solution to stop their brain from normalizing drugs is to add redemption to their punishment. Throughout the thesis, we discussed benefits and reasons why we should integrate faith-based rehabilitation as part of the criminal system. We saw that faith-based rehabilitation equips offenders with punitive and redemptive approach, lowers recidivism rates, and treats offenders' spiritual healing by treating their mental health. Therefore, is it right to sit back and do nothing? Although drug addiction is an issue that the Indonesian government has already solved through incarceration alone, everyone can play a major role in advocating for faith-based rehabilitation, or FBR, to be utilized in prisons. One action anyone could do is to donate money for these faith centers. Another would be the willingness to hire former drug offenders enrolled in FBR programs. Because in Indonesian society, where drug offenders are often treated as outcasts, you could be the means of providing for them another chance to redeem themselves and be the salt and light of a better future. As American author Catherine de Pascual once said, everyone needs second chances. Some of us need a third or fourth chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Good job. Our panelists today are Mr. Brahm and Ms. Viola. Mr. Brahm, would you like to go first?
Okay. So first of all, good job, Emily. So
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for bringing this topic into the thesis. It is very interesting and actually it is also applicable. Yeah, applicable. Okay, so good job for the presentation. I hope you can also defend your thesis well from some of my questions. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so my first question is, so far as I read your thesis, as I listen to your presentation, you focus your thesis on Christian faith
Yes.
based rehabilitation. Is that true? Okay. Now, my first question is, can we use this Christian-based rehabilitation to rehab or to cure the other kinds of criminals? Not just talking about drug dealer or drug addict, but also for different kinds of
Crimes.
criminals.
Are you saying like murder or theft?
Right. Murder, theft, terrorism, corruption. Can we apply this redemptive, you mentioned about redemptive, right? Redemptive solution for them.
I will say yes. But right now, I'm trying to solve addiction problems first. And maybe after it is proven successful, it can go to other types of crimes such as murder and theft or other things that are needed spiritual healing. Like for example, murder, it needs spiritual healing. And theft, maybe you just need some help or something. But I'm saying this is also applicable. But we will start with addiction treatment first.
Okay, thank you. So you focus on the addiction of drugs. What about the other addiction? Because, I think this redemptive solution can be applied in our family, not just talking about jail or behind the bars, but can we also use this redemptive solution to other kinds of addiction, like addiction to pornography or addiction to, let's say, something sweet? Yeah, some people, they were addicted to eat, something sweet, and it is not really good for their health. Can we use also this?
Okay, let me start with the meaning of addiction. Addiction usually starts when people are having difficulty or coping with some not so good emotions, which made them into a certain thing, for example, pornography or addiction, which will make them feel better. And as a result, when they cannot cope anymore, they get to these things that make them addict more and more. And because these have like internal causes and maybe some of it are mental disorders and things that they want to cope, which is mental illnesses. Maybe maybe faith-based rehabilitation can treat their emotional wounds and past traumas, like I argued before, and it may be applicable for these types of addiction, like pornography and also substance abuse, like alcoholic or alcoholism.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so I totally agree with you that this redemptive solution can also be used, in our family to help like our daughters or our sons who deal with this pornographic addiction. Yeah, instead of only focusing on the punitive one, we can also start using the redemptive one. Yeah, so very good. Now, my next question. In Indonesia, which the majority of the people hold the worldview of Islam, okay, do you think that this Christian faith-based rehabilitation is applicable, or should we change into Islam-based rehabilitation?
Well, actually, I'm arguing here about all the faith-based, including Islamic and also Christian. But I think, as a Christian myself, I think that Christianity is the best worldview.
Can I know why?
Okay, first of all, Christianity not only addresses like the basics, the surfaces, but it also addresses the inside of why we go to these things, why we go to spiritual diseases, and why we go to addiction. And maybe Christianity can heal us inside out, where I'm not sure about other religions.
Okay, answer. Thank you. Okay, my next question will be this. Some people might argue something like this. Okay, being addicted to drugs, I only get punished by doing some kind of rehab, and then listening to someone preaching. Okay, and then just 2 years of sentence in jail, and then I am free. So some people might take it for granted, because of the idea of this redemptive punishment for the drug addict. How can you counter that idea?
Well, if people take it for granted, no, actually, I will start first from addiction. If people got addiction, they are arrested for drug possession and they are incarcerated. Also, along with FBR, they went there, prisons as FBR. But however, they take it for granted, which means that all the worship, all the things done in FBR, they won't take it outside of their incarceration and FBR. They will still have the root causes of this addiction, and when they go out of this incarceration and FBR, they will still be addicted to drugs, and as a result, they will be going to prison again and FBR again, and yes, that's it.
Okay. So what do you think should be done for those kind of people who what should be the next step after they go out from the jail? Because you said that when this drug addict go out from the jail, and then a lot of times they meet with their old community, they meet with their old friends, okay, and then their old friends offer them with the drugs again, and then they just go into their old life. So what would be your suggestion so that those scenarios will not happen?
People are in a cycle where they got Some people are in a cycle where they got drug addicted and go to prisons, and after they go out, to drug addiction again and imprisonment again. But we should break that cycle. In here, FBR produces the lowest recidivism rate, as I argued before, by providing new hope and beginnings for offenders, where instead of going back to their usual habit of addiction, they will be able to find meaningful things and purposeful things more than just relying on drugs, because relying on drugs will lead nowhere. And they will also have faith-based rehab helps them to achieve what they are meant to achieve in life. Like going back to school, building career or businesses, which means that they don't have to go back to drugs.
Okay, we need to move on to Miss Viola.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Okay, hi, Emily.
Hi, Miss Viola.
Okay, yeah. So, first of all, I would say your thesis is a creative approach of thinking, and it's potential. I mean, like I can see potential and feasible research, actually, especially in Indonesia. Yeah, and I'm happy to read your paper because I think you have a correct understanding of current problems of Indonesia law and approaching drug users, and especially when you mentioned the overcapacities problems in the prison in Indonesia, especially. So, good job for that. Now, however, my position right here is more to ensure whether this idea is applicable in Indonesia and especially in the drug abuse context. Yeah. So my first questions would be, have you ever known that in our law, especially the law of the narcotics, the law in the UU nomor 35 tahun 2009 especially, actually, it was written already that they already separate between the drug dealers and the drug users. And they know already that the law has written already that it's not about the imprisonment, but they have written that rehabilitation is mandatory. Okay, so they knew already in the law that rehabilitation is mandatory for the drug user, especially for the medical rehabilitation and social rehabilitation. That's in the Article 54. And the Article 57, they wrote it already that the faith-based rehabilitation is also suggested too. So my question is, why you propose it again as it's already written in Indonesian law?
Okay, thank you for the question, Miss Viola. First of all, sometimes Indonesian law are not really strict, so there is laws, but some of the judges or prosecutors are not really implementing the law correctly at first. And you also said that faith-based rehabilitation are encouraged but not mandatory. But I argue that faith-based rehabilitation should be made mandatory. Yes, that is the difference between what I am arguing and the current situation right now.
Good. I'm glad that you know about that. Okay, good. It's true. So it's Indonesia thing, yeah. Though the law is actually written, but somehow the implementation of it is not as what it is written. So good job for
Yes.
that. However, have you known that there is going to be a revision of KUHP that will be applied in the next January 2026, this upcoming 6 months, 6 to 7 months, that rehabilitation is not that rehabilitation is no longer an option. So your proposal is in addition to imprisonment. However, Indonesian government right now has seen that punitive approach is no longer works. Therefore, they move on to redemptive approach. So, as answering also for the overcapacities issues that the prison have right now, the government of Indonesia already see that it is no longer imprisonment. It's gonna be full redemptive approach. So your proposal right here, in addition to imprisonment, faith-based rehabilitation should be mandatory. Doesn't it now seems like you regress? Do you mean that you disagree to the government plan of the replacement of imprisonment to rehabilitation? Isn't government idea actually the better one to solve the issue of the capacities and the punitive issue better than your proposal? What do you think?
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Viola, for this new information. However, I would like to say my opinion. My opinion is against the government. Adding redemption only to drug offenders is not effective, where usually the most effective type of discipline is redemptive and punitive approach. In punitive approach that are being eliminated in 2026, a punitive punishment actually fosters understanding why these things are wrong and why they have negative consequences behind their addictive behaviors.
So you are saying that the punitive approach is still needed.
Yes.
So you against the government idea of the fully redemptive approach.
Yes.
Okay, if that's the case, so how will it solve the issue? We are talking about Indonesia, yeah, especially, yeah. How will it solve the issue that Indonesians prisons right now is highly over capacities, and you mentioned it as well in your statement of facts.
Are you questioning why, like, what we do with?
No, I'm questioning your idea of let us still have the punitive approach,
Yes.
while in contradict to it, that you also mentioned in your statement of fact, talking about Indonesia prison right now is over capacities. Isn't fully redemptive approach, especially for the drugs users, drug offenders, is a better idea to solve the issue of the overcapacities of the prison. So let's just erase the punitive. Let's just move on to the fully redemptive.
Okay. If it's like fully redemptive also can make overcrowding of faith-based institutions. Like, for example, there is no more incarceration. So there is only faith-based or secular-based rehabilitation. Instead of prisons, offenders will be taken to this faith-based rehabilitation. And there will also be overcrowding. So what you said does not address the issue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my last question, do I still have time? Okay, my last question would be, so your proposal is your mandating, you said it's mandatory for the faith-based rehabilitation. So far as I've read your paper, it seems like you are proposing it as a single alternative. So my question would be, as you mentioned about the integration of the body, mind, and soul, why not proposing it as an integration, as an holistic approach of rehabilitation, instead of just proposing the faith-based rehabilitation alone? Why not proposing the fully holistic approach of rehabilitation, which involve the mind rehabilitation, body rehabilitation, and soul rehabilitation?
Because I think when the holistic faith-based treatment and also faith-based rehabilitation, when combined with holistic treatment, can be more effective. Where in redemption, they just understand like why the gospel-centered approach, why the addiction is wrong, and they have a second chance. But also, after knowing that they have a second chance, they should also heal themselves from the inside and the outside, where it starts from the body, which means the addiction itself, to the mind and also the soul, because inside it brought things to the outside.
So with that say that you actually agree for the holistic approach then. So that's my question. Why not proposing for the more holistic approach instead of just a single faith-based rehabilitation?
Okay, can you clarify, like, can you give me time to myself? Okay, first of all, holistic treatments is healing the body, healing the emotions, and healing the spirituality. And faith-based rehabilitation actually heals the spirituality, where these spiritual practices can help them heal. So holistic treatment actually exists in faith-based institutions and recovery.
Okay.
That's the time is up already. Okay, thank you, Emily.
Yeah. So
Thank
there's
you,
a
Miss.
few questions here. First, I want to say I really do appreciate this particular topic. I don't know if Ms. Strickland told you this, but years ago we were involved with a prison ministry that was working entirely on faith-based rehabilitation for drug addicts in prison. And we're not going to the prisons, but we were supporting and helping this ministry. And it was so successful in bringing recidivism rates down that the state of Texas began supporting it. That's how successful it was. So I really do believe that what you're talking about is exactly what's needed. One of the questions I have, though, and some of your peers have asked, is about someone who's not religious at all. They're a prisoner. They're an atheist. what are you going to do? You're going to force them to take religious, faith-based rehabilitation, and if so, how do you choose the religion? Is it going to be Islamic-based? Is it going to be Christian-based? How do you treat the atheist who says, I'm not a faith-based guy?
Okay, thanks for the question, Mr. Wade. First of all, let me define what atheist means. Atheist means not believing in God or any God. Faith-based rehabilitation although faith-based rehabilitation should be a mandatory, but people should not be forced to go to a faith-based rehabilitation. Maybe atheists can be encouraged to go there. Maybe by going there, atheists can know who God is. But back again, we cannot force them. So if they decline, we should accept that.
Okay, good. And these faith-based approaches you're talking about, are these approaches usually in sort of a communal setting where there's multiple prisoners that work together, or is it an individual program, or are there different kinds of programs?
Maybe they are different kind of programs, but they can work together in order to achieve healing.
Okay. All right, time is up. You've done a good job. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
All right, very good. So we will meet friends and family, advisors, panelists over here for photos, and then we will begin at
I-
2 o'clock, around 2 o'clock, maybe a little after. No, right at 2. I think we'll start right at 2 with Caleb. Right at 2 with Caleb.